Good afternoon. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Public Health, Environment, Civil Rights, and Engagement Committee for Monday, June 18, 2018. My name is Philippe Cunningham, and I'm the City Council member for the 4th Ward and the chair of this committee. With me at the dais are Council Members Schrader, Gordon, and Council Vice President Jenkins. Please let the record reflect that we have a quorum. So members of the committee, I will be adding another item to the consent agenda for today. You should have a copy of it in front of you. This staff direction is directing the Civil Rights Department, specifically the Office of Police Conduct Review and the Police Conduct Oversight Commission to complete their research study on MPD officer involvement in the use of sedatives during arrests and report back to the Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee by July 20th, 2018. Following the submission of the study, an independent audit of the study and process will be completed to examine the city's research process and increase transparency. So I want to add that to the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say no. Motion passes. So now we have 8 items on the consent agenda. The first we have the Public Health Advisory Committee appointment of Jerome Evans, seat 12, Ward 12, for a 2-year term. Number 2 is a contract amendment with AS Medical Solutions for school-based clinics, pharmaceutical services. 3 is a grant from Clearway, Minnesota for outreach to retailers. So that's going to be a grant of $25,000 to conduct outreach to link Minneapolis tobacco retailers to business technical assistance, resources, loans, and other resources to help stores adjust to potential financial implications of the menthol sales restrictions that will go into effect on August 1st. Number 4 is a grant application to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for the Environmental Assistance Grant Program. That is some exciting new work because it's going to be $50,000 for the fiscal year 2019, specifically to provide reduction in the use of toxic chemical exposure or chemical toxins and the usage of them in Minneapolis nail salons. So we've seen a lot of really great work with the becoming the first perk-free city with our dry cleaners, and now we've done a lot of work with auto body shops, and now we're moving into nail salons as well. So that's really exciting. Number 5 is we have a grant application for the CDC for a REACH grant. This is a huge opportunity that I'm very excited about. It's up to the amount of $900,000 annually over a 5-year period from September of this year to September of 2023. And the focus of it is to improve health, prevent chronic diseases, and reduce health disparities with a target population with African Americans, East Africans, and American Indians in Minneapolis. So good luck to the health department in that pursuit. And then number 6, we have contracts with various organizations to fund collaborative safety strategies. So I'll run through these here so folks can hear the great collaborative work that's been happening through NCR. So first we have authorizing a contract with the Heritage Youth Sports Foundation in the amount of $20,000 for Athletic Leadership 2.0, a leadership training program and mentorship program for high school students. We also have the Man Up Club for $30,000 with a program to engage youth 16 to 24 in crisis along the West Broadway corridor that provides mentoring sessions with professional adult role models. The third is authorizing a contract with the Falwell Neighborhood Association in the amount of $50,000 for the Penn Avenue Collaborative, Community Collaborative, which is events, programs, and that will occur over the summer along the Penn Avenue corridor. 4 is a contract with the Minneapolis Police Activities League in the amount of $13,000 for the Building Strong Men Mentoring Program, a mentorship program for Native men. 5 is authorizing a contract with the Seward Neighborhood Group in the amount of $7,000 to provide restorative justice solutions to Little Earth residents. 6 is authorizing a contract with the Native American Community Development Institute in the amount of $30,000 to pilot a youth-led engagement leadership development program. 7 is authorizing a contract with Indigenous Roots in the amount of $80,640 to conduct outreach and provide resources along the Lake Street corridor. 8 is authorizing a contract with the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association in the amount of $73,000 to incentivize year-round outreach, cleanup, patronage along the Lake Street corridor. 9 is with Indigenous Roots for $20,000 to engage with check cashing business owners along Lake Street to make it safer for workers to carry cash. And number 10 is again with Indigenous Roots for $20,000 to use visual art, story, and movement to activate Lake Street. So just wanted to share that was a big body of work. Thank you to Cheyenne for all of your work on that. And then our last consent, or our 7th consent item, is the Neighborhood and Community Relations Commission appointments. We'll be setting a public hearing for July 9th, 2018 to consider the appointments to the Neighborhood and Community Engagement Commission, the NCEC. And then our 8th item is the staff direction to the Civil Rights Department. Do committee members have any questions? Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham. I'm just curious about items under number 6, 7, and 8. So it's item number 6, and then within that, 7 and 8, and it seems like there are 2 contracts to provide outreach and cleanup and services along Lake Street, and I'm wondering, are those in the same areas? Are they distinctly different? Do we know?
So this, so
Lake Street.
Yeah, this is the Lake Street
East
program.
and west is the entire city almost.
So Cheyenne, would you like to come speak to this? Come to the podium, please.
Through the chair, Vice President Jenkins, yes, they are along the Lake Street Avenue corridor. They are for different projects. Included in the RCA is a little more description of what projects they are. So one is for a cleanup, a community cleanup. Adopt-A-Block is one of them you mentioned. And then the other one is for street outreach with the Natives Against Heroin and other organizations to do street outreach for that purpose.
So thank you, is it East Lake Street? Is it the entirety of Lake Street?
Sorry, through the chair, Vice President Jenkins, it's Lake Street from Hiawatha to, I believe, 35W is the general area. Within each of those projects, it gets a little more specific.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a comment on the staff direction you're bringing forward. That would be appropriate?
Yes, it is.
Well, I applaud you for bringing this forward. I, like most of my neighbors, was just appalled by the use of ketamine by our officers and by the Hennepin County. And I think that this is a great first step. And I want to thank you for bringing this forward. I think we have to remember as elected officials that we defend the people of the city, not the city itself. And when these things are happening, we need to take action quickly. I think this gets there. What I would add is that I want to make sure that the timeline is enough that we get to the root of the problem, and also that we talk to the county to make sure that they're held accountable for their end as well. But thank you again for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Schrader. I would like to also jump in here and speak to the staff direction that I'm bringing forward today. This staff direction is coming out of some very concerning initial findings from the OPCR and the PCOC's work. When I first heard of it, I was very appalled. I think the word was used. And I have worked closely now with the OPCR and the PCOC on some other bodies of work that are related to mine. And so I strongly support the integrity of the Civil Rights Department and the Office of Police Conduct Review, as well as the Police Conduct Oversight Commission. And I believe that the study that was released was incomplete. And for us to maintain that integrity, we need to make sure that we give the space to the Civil Rights Department, to the folks who have been tasked by ordinance to complete this study. We want to make sure that we give them the space to be able to do so. And I also wanted to add that the second component of it for an independent audit of the study and process is meant to increase transparency. There are a lot of questions that have come up. And so again, to hold ourselves accountable as well as our process accountable, this is not a reflection of the faith and the trust that I have in our city departments, but to be able to increase transparency that citizens and residents can see that we are doing our due diligence when we see these sort of issues, that we are getting to the bottom of it and being as thorough as possible. Councilmember Ellison?
Yeah, I wanted to stop by just to echo support of the motion. I did see it and wondered if the timeline needed to be extended. I'd love to get some feedback from Civil Rights about how much time they would need to be able to complete the report. But aside from that, I want to fully go ahead and support this. There are two questions, right? There's the question of what did our officers do, right? And we as a city need to be held accountable for that. But then there's the other part that's equally as troubling that we don't have purview over, and that is the county's role, right? And so I hope that the county will step up and figure out how they're going to hold the EMS accountable to this whole ordeal. But I certainly want to make sure that we as a city are holding our officers accountable. So just wanted to come and speak in support, even though I'm not on the committee. So thank you.
Thank you for being here, Councilmember Ellison. I just want to speak to the timeline that I actually spoke with the Director of Civil Rights and of the OPCR, and that is a realistic timeline for them to be able to bring it to the next PSEM meeting. Council President Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not serve on this committee and appreciate the opportunity to speak here today. I also wanted to thank you for your leadership in quickly responding to the fact that our draft report is publicly available. I know in speaking with our Civil Rights Director and staff that there was quite a lot of work left to do in the report. And so I had understood that their next steps were to engage some of the folks that were mentioned in the study, including the police department and the county or the hospitals that are supervising the health workers that are administering these drugs. But I really also appreciate that Civil Rights took this on and the work that they have done so far, and look forward to them completing their work with that additional information that they need to complete their report. I did have one question about the staff direction, and that was the use of the word audit, because we have a separate audit committee, and that term is something that has a legal definition within our charter or wherever we've established the audit committee. I believe it's in our charter. And so I just wasn't sure if that was the right word. So an audit of our Civil Rights Department's report and process would be, the way I would read it in that context would be like something that would go through the audit committee with like some very specific steps. And so I just wasn't sure if we wanted to use the word audit, or if what we really meant was like an external review, and that might leave it more open-ended as to determining, in coordination with the audit committee chair and the other relevant departments, if what we really mean is a full audit, or perhaps it's more of a review or an internal discussion of the way that PCOC is writing and publishing reports. I think that very slight tweak of the language might actually leave more flexibility in getting to the outcome that you're intending with the staff direction. So that was just an observation having read it. And I know that you prepared this quickly in response to all of the information that came out about this very recently. But again, very supportive of making sure that our Civil Rights Department has all of the support that they need to complete this work, and also looking forward to learning more about the medical side. I think the other last point I want to make was that, as others have said, I think the intention of this report by our Civil Rights Department was to look at the behavior of our police department, which is within the city's purview. I know that Hennepin Healthcare, it looks like, has already requested an external review of the procedures that they are using. I think we all need to learn more about that, but our Civil Rights Department doesn't have, a jurisdiction or authority over Hennepin Health, and I don't think they were intending to suggest that they did, and rather the intention of this was focused on the behavior of our police department. I also appreciate the speed with which our chief responded to this information and made sure that he communicated with our officers and clarified an existing policy that they should not be directing any kind of medical, procedures to happen. So anyway, all that to say, with that one small tweak, I'm really glad to see this coming forward as well.
Thank you, Madam President. Point is very well taken. With that feedback, I actually will make a motion to amend the staff direction. Is that okay? To change out the words, the phrase independent audit and replace that with external evaluation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against say no. That passes. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate that change and that's in there. I think when I read the story or the report, there were concerns too from the medical community around this original draft content, and I think frankly it's something that a light has been shined on, and we want to get to the bottom of it and really figure it out. I think there's a lot of concerning elements in it where we have, for instance, law enforcement giving suggestions or maybe being too close and chummy with our EMS personnel in very serious split-second decision-making that requires the use of or that may involve the use of powerful drugs. And I think even just knowing ketamine's history, it was a pretty shocking headline to read, but it's something that I also personally don't want to jump to conclusions over the value of this medical tool in its limited capacity when administered by medical professionals. And so I think it's something we all need answers to, is if it was administered in appropriate circumstances or not. And I think certainly enough questions have been raised about it that we really need to delve into this, because there's a lot of concerning details that have emerged. And so we got to get to the bottom of it and figure it out. And I'm glad that this staff direction is before us today, because I think it shows that, and I think you see this with having two folks that aren't even on the committee here today, including our council president, that this is something that the council takes very seriously and wants to get to the bottom of. And I believe the public wants us to as well. So thank you for bringing this forward, and happy to support it.
Thank you, Council Member. Are there any other questions or comments? Though one thing that I would like to just really reiterate to colleagues is that this particular study, this particular study is focused on officers' involvement. So we may see down the road further conversations about the medical aspect of it or the county's role, but right now the OPCR's jurisdiction is MPD's behaviors. And so just to name that when the study comes before the council, it's going to have a primary focus on just MPD officer behavior. So, all right, well, with all of that, seeing no further questions, I move approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Those items are approved. Thank you so much to our guests here today. And also wanted to mention that Councilmember Kano is out of town today, which is why she is not here with us at Peace. So we have two very exciting discussion items that I have been very excited to get talking about. The first is the Youth Violence Prevention Executive Committee presentation. We have Sasha Cotton, the Youth Violence Prevention Coordinator, who will be giving us the presentation. Please come on forward. Before we get started, I just have to say how excited I am. You all have been doing such amazing work on this, and this is a huge opportunity for us. So thank you so much for all your work.
Thank you, Chair Cunningham, and thank you to the council for having us this afternoon. We're just getting set up here, so give us just a moment to get the PowerPoint presentation up and running. All right, so we'll get started. Just to give a little bit of background, this is coming from a staff directive from Councilmember Gordon in regards to sort of tightening up and reconfiguring our Youth Violence Prevention Executive Committee. There had been a sort of a hiatus in the convening of that committee, and wanted to think through how we can best serve the citizens of Minneapolis. So this is an update. So giving some backstory, the Minneapolis Youth Violence Prevention Executive Committee was convened by the council in 2008, and its purpose is really to give direction and oversight for the implementation of the blueprint for action to prevent youth violence. So general oversight, as well as providing recommendations and serving as a decision-making body to offer recommendations, reviewing the needs, and developing strategic partnerships are the purpose of the body. So just, again, wanting to give a little bit of historical context as to what the previous committee had done. So the committee has historically been chaired by the mayor and has been convened by 2 co-chairs that the mayor appoints, generally one from philanthropy and one from a community-based organization. And then there are 17 members that come from a wide range of agencies and organizations that focus on youth and have an impact on youth violence. These seats have historically been very specific. So we've needed someone who serves as a business leader. We've needed someone from our schools, someone from Parks and Rec, someone from law enforcement. So they've been very prescriptive, which has had its advantages and disadvantages over the years. The health department and our adolescent youth and development team has been the oversight from the staff, providing staffing as well as general day-to-day operations, supporting the committee. And we have a wide range of skills. So I really wanted to touch point on this because I think it really segues us into talking about broadening the scope a little bit. The staff in adolescent health have a pretty expansive background around criminal justice and violence prevention, looking at everything from domestic violence and sexual assaults and sex trafficking, all the way to community violence, and now really looking strategically at gang violence. And so we really feel like our staff often gets tapped to think more broadly about violence prevention across the city. And so thinking about and considering thinking more about violence prevention comprehensively and not just youth focused seems to be a niche that we have the skill set to fill while still maintaining the integrity of keeping youth as our primary focus. So some of the things that we've done in thinking about making this shift or figuring out what would be the right step for us is soliciting some technical assistance from the National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention. The City of Minneapolis has been a member of the National Forum on Youth Violence Prevention since 2012, and they offer technical assistance as well as a variety of trainings. And so we wanted to go back to them and look at the ways that other organizations, other cities are looking at governance around violence prevention and youth violence prevention and get some insights from them. When we talked about sort of a collaborative table and bringing together a wider group of stakeholders that was supported by their vision in thinking through how to support young people experiencing violence. The other thing that we did was to convene a cross-sectional group of partners to talk about our past youth violence prevention work and where we saw the work going in the future. And that consisted of stakeholders within the city enterprise, as well as community-based organizations and folks who had previously served on the Youth Violence Prevention Executive Committee. And it was an opportunity for everyone to sort of share what's been going on in the work, what has been effective, what hasn't worked, and how can we get this right to make sure that we're serving Minneapolis at its best possible way. And again, we received the staff directive from Councilmember Gordon, so that's what's really catapulted us to the place that we are now. With that staff directive, we convened a group of stakeholders from inside the city that was made up of mayor staff, council staff, as well as health department staff to think about what could be done. What's the best direction for us to move in, and coming back with some recommendations about what we can do. So currently, these are some of the projects that the city's health department manages through the adolescent health and youth development work, primarily by the youth violence prevention staff. It's a pretty long list. So next step is our hospital-based intervention project that right now is at HCMC and will be continuing to be effective at North Memorial. We're going to be expanding the scope of that work. The group violence intervention, also known as GVI, pop-up parks, inspiring youth, our CDC project, which is working primarily on the north side to address both teen dating violence and community violence, the Juvenile Supervision Center, which is right here in City Hall and providing 24-hour services for young people with low-level crime, domestic violence and its special projects, which are our wonderful Nigel handles. I don't know if Nigel's here, but really has a great purview on both sexual health and domestic violence and has been working tirelessly across the enterprise on that. Our Blueprint Approved Institute, which is the capacity building opportunity for small agencies who want to develop stronger skill sets to work with young people. Our work around sex trafficking, our parent support, and our Youth Violence Prevention Awareness Week and summer activities. So that includes our My Brother's Keeper work around the Bridges to Manhood Conference, as well as a variety of other projects where we partner with community-based agencies who are serving young people. So this is a pretty comprehensive list of our work. I think there's probably some things that we do that's even missing here. And then these are some of the projects that are going on throughout the city that currently don't live in the health department, but that definitely have intersections with our work. And we just want to think more critically about how we can make these systems work together. So as you can see, the First Time Gun Offender Program and the Domestic Violence Hotspot work, as well as the Little Earth BCGA project, are currently in the City Attorney's Office. And if anyone has questions, feel free to chime in, and I'll do my best to explain any of these projects because it's a lot of work. Recast in the coordinator's office. The Promise Zone has a public safety committee, My Brother's Keeper, which was championed by our own council member Cunningham, and the collaborative safety strategies, which has been mentioned here, the Build Leaders Program, the National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice, and the Juvenile Diversion Program. And I know that there is work that's missing, but I could only fit so much on a slide. But as you can see, there's a ton of work happening across the enterprise that is focused on violence prevention and public safety. And right now, these systems don't have an organized way to talk to one another. It's sort of happening by chance. And we believe that having an executive committee that's focused on violence prevention comprehensively would allow us to continue to focus on young people, but also really think about how these various projects that we have both promote safety for young people and are thinking across the age span.
Ms. Cotton, if I may, Council Vice President Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Cotton, I'm just curious if you think that the innovation team might be able to help sort of stitch or knit some of these disparate activities together?
Thank you, Vice President Jenkins. Yes, we think that there is a possibility that the I-Team could be involved and would definitely be open to ways that we could partner with them. The I-Team in New Orleans is actually in charge of their enterprise-wide violence prevention work. And so I think that there's definitely opportunities to look here, since we have an I-Team, at how that might influence this body of work. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. You can go ahead.
So thinking about the Violence Prevention Executive Committee, this is some of the infrastructure that we came up with that we're bringing back to you all at the council for recommendation. As a recommendation, it would continue to be a mayorally appointed body with council approval seats. It would include 5 ward-based seats, which would focus or give preference to areas that are most impacted by violence and that are highly represented by communities of color because they are often most impacted by violence. We would continue to want to look across a variety of sectors like financial and business, healthcare, research and academia, law enforcement, faith, community, Parks and Rec, and the Board of Education. We want to continue to look at those criteria that we know are really important to outcomes related to young people, but that what happens to young people also really affects the community at large and vice versa. The committee would also include non-appointed folks, people from within the city enterprise, from a variety of work groups that already exist around violence prevention, and would give those folks an opportunity to really connect, talk about how their work aligns and is working to the best of its ability. I think that that's where we see an opportunity, is to really make sure that all of these various systems that are focused on public safety and violence prevention have an opportunity to convene on a regular basis, to provide feedback to both the mayor's office and this body, and to really make sure that we're working to the best of our abilities. So some of the areas that we thought, again, might be beneficial to have at the table would be recast, the collaborative public safety strategies, but a wide range of citywide projects that have an impact on public safety could be convened at this one table. And I think that that pretty much synthesizes what we had to say. We would continue to focus on youth violence prevention. We want in no way to step back from youth violence prevention as a critical component of the work. We know that by and large, young people are most impacted by violence. And so we don't see this as an opportunity to take away from that work, but as an opportunity to really enhance and think about how a wide range of violence can impact young people and the community at large.
I have a question from Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. And just to warn committee members, I did bring in a resolution that I was hoping was reflecting the staff recommendation. I'm not sure if I quite nailed it, and it might need a little tweaking. I just want to understand a little bit about these 2 different sides of the committee. Mm-hmm. How many would there be then total? Is that 21 total people that you're proposing? Or, and maybe you could tell me how much from each bucket. So there was one that had to do with the mayoral appointed, council approved, and then another non-voting non-members. Did you have a specific number in mind for either of those?
Yes, Councilmember Gordon, and to the chair. We would do 21 seats as we've currently done, with 17 appointed members and 3 co-chairs, and those would be the voting members of the body. The staff from the city who reflect a variety of the projects across the enterprise would be there as non-voting members, really reporting into that body and providing updates on their work and working around the issue of alignment. And so I don't think we have a target number on that because there is such a wide range of work. We don't want to nail that down. It would really be based on the projects across the enterprise that have a touch point with this issue.
Okay. And just go back to the 17 appointed members?
17 appointed and 3 co-chairs.
So 20 total?
Where are we getting 21 from? So we historically have had 17 appointed and 3 members. Excuse our math. We are good at a lot of things, but math may not be one of them. So yes, let's say 20, sir.
So, did the current mayor express a deep desire to appoint all members and also serve as chair? I know that when this was started, it was pretty much coming out of the Mayor R.T. Ryback's office, and I think that was an initial thing that we did to kind of build on that and use that momentum. Typically, when we have these groups, there are some appointed by the council and some by the mayor. So if you could just speak to that for a little bit, so I understand that.
The mayor's staff, sir, did include interest in wanting to continue in participation in this work. I think how and what that looks like has some level of flexibility, which is why we included the ward seats and wanting to really think about how we be more inclusive and represent this body as well and the needs around the city. So I apologize that I don't have a specific answer for you. I do think that the mayor wants to continue in the existing role, but would be open to thinking about how we communicate back any potential changes that this body might have.
And I think also, and I don't know if we had this in the other resolution, I'm not looking at it, but there was also always a council seat, and maybe that council seat. And I also think we went through the open appointments process to be appointed. So, okay.
Yes, and we'll continue to go through the open appointment process.
Okay, well, that sounds good. That's not exactly what I've got in the draft before us. So I think when the time comes, I'm going to want to move this draft forward without recommendation so I can make some refinements and get it right before the council meeting. But I think those are the questions I have, and now I understand things better, and I really appreciate it. And I was a little bit hesitant at first when we were just taking the name youth off the title of this executive committee, but I really appreciate now this offers us an opportunity not only to implement fully our blueprint, which is focused on youth violence prevention and continue the great work we're doing, but maybe better coordinate it with other efforts in the city. And so I'm accepting that and getting to the point where I'll be embracing it enthusiastically soon.
Well, I am enthusiastic about it. And the reason why is because as the chair of the Peace Committee and seeing and being so heavily involved with violence prevention and seeing how it's been scattered throughout the city, it's not just owned in the health department anymore. The health department's the experts around violence prevention and what that means like from an epidemiological perspective. But like at the end of the day, there's work that's happening all over. And I think that this is a really great opportunity for us to be able to get the recast folks at the table, the collaborative safety folks at the table, the domestic violence hotspots work all at the table, talking about what's happening, what resources are available, what's working, what's not working, and then to be able to use that as a way to be in relationship with the community in a more intentional way. I think that this is a really great structure, and I'm excited to see what the resolution ends up looking like so that we can I'll be super enthusiastic about it. I did have one question, is that the original Youth Violence Prevention Committee was the stewards, if you will, of the blueprint, what is it?
Blueprint for action to prevent youth violence.
There we go. I was like, the blueprint, the one word. So that was really what it was tasked with in 2008. So that's been 10 years now. Do you, from your perspective, believe that it's time for us to update the blueprint so that it is more expansive to include the work beyond here? And since we're rethinking the committee, and the committee has been historically the stewards, is that something that you feel like might be down the road too?
Thank you, Committee Chair Philippe Cunningham. We are thinking broadly about expanding the scope of the committee, as well as thinking about our comprehensive plan. The plan was updated in 2012 when we joined the Forum on Youth Violence Prevention nationally, but that's still been quite a while. And so it is time to really think about what we currently have written down and how it coordinates across the enterprise. And so that is definitely a challenge that we're looking at both for this year and probably leading into next year.
Thank you so much. Do any of my colleagues have any further questions for Ms. Cotton? All right. Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you to all the staff who put time into thinking through this staff direction. This work is such cutting edge work. And I am so grateful to have such amazing staff who take the time to think intentionally about how we're reorganizing systems to be more effective, and so that we're being more, we're building better power here through the city. So thank you, and thank you to Commissioner Musicamp for all of your leadership as well. And with that, I would like to make a motion to receive and file the Youth Violence Prevention Executive Committee presentation. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and that item is received and filed. And I have a question, comment from Councilmember Gordon.
So I would also like to move the resolution that you have before you that outlines the specifics of this. I think I passed one out to everybody, but maybe not. But I'd like to move it forward without recommendation because I have some inaccuracies in it. So this is basically taking the recommendation that we got from the staff direction and creating the group. I don't want to wait. I really am. I think we need to get this up and running as soon as possible. But I don't want to do the wordsmithing right here in committee. So this is my strategy to move it forward without recommendation, and then we can certainly, I can share progress we've made and have an opportunity to refine it before the council meeting.
So the motion on the table is to forward the resolution by Councilmember Gordon amending the Youth Violence Prevention Committee so the motion is to forward it to the next council meeting without recommendation. And is there anything else I need to add to that motion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. That passes. Thank you, everybody, for your patience with that one. Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you. All right. And next up, we have a presentation, the annual presentation from the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council. We have Tamara, this is from the city coordinator's office, along with Devon Nolan and Latasha Powell of the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council. They will be giving our presentations. Thank you so much. Take it from here.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Cunningham and City Council members. My name is Tasha Powell. It's an honor to be co-chair of Minneapolis Homegrown Council. Today I'm here with my colleagues to talk about our accomplishments and plans. Phase 1 from November 2008 to June 2009, the launch of HDM and development of recommendation for ways the city can support and advance local food systems. Phase 2 took place from July 29 to December 2011. That was the implementation of recommendations. And Phase 3 from January 2012 to the present, the passage of the Urban Ag Text, amendments, and formation of the Food Council. To continue to advance Homegrown Minneapolis, the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council works to support all Minneapolis residents and increase access to quality food, address hunger and food insecurities, connect sectors of food system, influence policy and decision making, and ensure environmental sustainability and social just food systems. To accomplish this, the Food Council serves as a platform for collaborative coordinated actions, provide ongoing guidance to the city on local and food issues, foster city-community partnership, and convene and engage diverse stakeholders to identify and propose innovative solutions to improve our local food system. Our 17 community member representation bring many food systems and community perspective, knowledge, and innovations. Our partnership includes representation from the City Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the Minneapolis Public Schools. We appreciate leadership and participation from Chair Cunningham on behalf of City Council. Thank you again. And from Heidi Ritchie on behalf of the Mayor Fry office. Now I will hand it over to Tamara.
Thank you, Tasha. And Thank you. We are excited to see our food system continue growing thanks to the fertilization and support from the City Council and the city to support everybody's equitable access to participation in the food system. And as you see, we continue getting more chickens and plants growing every year. We're excited in the past year to have seen more lots become available for growing in the city. Partnership from Public Works has expanded around several areas of the city for more lots to become available. We have been actively engaged in the planning around the comp plan, and several of the research teams we have been able to sit in and provide some advice, as well as multiple discussions with the Food Council from planning staff, which we've appreciated. Additionally, we have supported the revision and promotion of food donations guidelines and some really exciting amendments to the Homegrown Small Business Fund and a new pilot project in partnership with United Way and Neon over on the north side to see what might happen if we provide some more flexible capital to food business entrepreneurs. And finally, an exciting change with the parks to make an amendment to an ordinance to allow some better access to healthy food in the parks as one of the follow-up steps to their urban ag activity plan and its implementation. Those are just a few of the highlights on the city level. We have a whole report on both city and state and regional level accomplishments over the past year available. And state level Good Food Access Fund and Urban Ag Funding, we were actively involved in promoting, and we're excited to see both made available with recent RFPs and community engagement in that. Twin Cities Good Food Purchasing Program, we signed on to that coalition, and our Minneapolis Public School District has been doing a baseline assessment and understanding from the context of their own procurement decisions and authority what they might do to have a better procurement for all and its policies. And finally, we're really excited to have signed on and to get your support in the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, which is a voluntary international agreement that cities sign on to. And we'll say more later about what we're doing to understand what that means for us as a city and what we might want to do to move ourselves forward in that community of sign-on cities. We're very excited about all the activities occurring with the farmers markets and the development and launch of a new brand, the Farmers Markets of Minneapolis, in the last year, with a lot of support from the city, as well as university and active participation of our co-chair and other market manager leaders in developing a plan for the farmers markets that can help them to be successful for the vendors and the eaters who depend on them. We have been doing metrics at all of the markets and marketing, as well as a number of technical assistance projects to help the markets to better implement their food access programs. And as you can see, a number of giveaways and things that both help our environmental systems as well as the branding. And we're very excited to promote Farmers Market Week in August, when we will be able to share some of our highlights and learnings from the metrics project to date. With that, I will hand it over to our co-chair, Devon.
Thank you, Tamara, and thank you to Committee Chair Cunningham and City Council. Just want to talk a little bit about community engagement highlights. We facilitated conversations about healthy food access, land access, and food business development. We have a monthly e-newsletter that reaches over 3,300 individuals. And Friends of Homegrown was our social media presence on Facebook, and then our Homegrown Minneapolis website has proven to be a great resource to city members here. We did host a food policy forum, which was not your traditional food policy forum, and we were very intentional about that. And we want to thank Council Chair Cunningham, Councilmember Ellison, Councilmember Gordon, and Councilmember Schroeder for serving on that panel. Hopefully it was enjoyable for you as well. And so we're really excited to have mayor and city council members who are foodies and really prioritizing their commitment to food and healthy food access and healthy food businesses in our city here. We had over 100 attendees. We discussed needs and opportunities around urban agriculture and food business development. We look forward to continuing this conversation with policymakers and members and community members about how to continue to supportive incentives through more innovations within our food system. This is a real opportunity to showcase what authentic community government partnerships look like. Oftentimes that means council members getting out into community, and sometimes that means us coming down to City Hall. Our current working groups, we spent the first quarter with our new council.
If I may jump in really quick,
Sure.
if you could go back to the last slide. I just wanted to, if I can real quick, I want to point out to my colleagues, the photo furthest to the left is Appetite for Change in North Minneapolis. Urban Youth is the name of their music group. Folks, please take the time to YouTube good food, and because they have a really great song talking about healthy food, and that's what they're performing right there, I can tell, because I've seen them perform it. They love it. All right, sorry, please
Thank
proceed.
you, Committee Chair Cunningham.
Is that different from hot Cheetos and Takis?
It's a different group.
Okay.
Same producer, but
Different song though, right?
Yeah. It was a dream come true for us after that Hot Cheetos and Taki song.
Okay.
So yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that. It was a lot of fun. So yes, we spent the first quarter of with our new council really developing our strategic priorities, really sifting through that with a lot of intentionality behind what we're going to work on over the next 2 years. Our current working groups and task force, which there are 6 of them, around healthy and inclusive food access, working to improve availability of healthy and culturally appropriate foods, specifically at retail stores and food shelves, by contributing to past and current food council and health department efforts in these areas. So really keeping that, building on that momentum that we've been able to build there. Healthy food and waste, working to promote the full utilization of existing food within our food system and encouraging responsible disposal of food that cannot be consumed. That's a priority for our city. I love using my little green organics recycling. And then around, as Tamara mentioned earlier, the Homegrown Small Business Fund and the grant pilot, working on promotion and assessment of kind of resurrecting that business fund. The local food links, which is again is around purchasing and procurement, the working group to make it easier for local food businesses and customers to work with the purchaser from the local farmers and food producers. So really being able to have some intentionality behind local food getting into larger institutions. And then again, the Milan Food Pack, which is international work. And, you know, we are an innovative city and we are innovative in a lot of ways. And it's all the more reason why we should support that work and working with city staff, really figuring out what that looks like at implementation within our city. And then our Urban Ag Working Group is continue to work on the recommendations to cities and parks, which include increasing staff time for our community, our garden program administration, promoting more land access and incentives for growing food, and offering lots for sale for urban growers. So lastly, thank you just again for the ongoing support and partnership. It's been a wonderful opportunity for myself, build my own capacity, even understanding like how to get behind there with one of you guys maybe one day. But really building those bridges between community and those who represented us. So thank you so much. Any questions?
Great, thank you. I have a question from Council Member Schrader.
No, well, mainly I just want to thank you all for the amazing work you did. That was a great forum. I appreciate being asked to be there. I think it really, it may start from being a foodie, but then you just see how it brings community of all types together. And then to continue to ask questions of how does food make our city resilient and how far we are behind. Like a lot of these things we celebrate, but we have a very long place to go. I mean, being number one on a list doesn't mean anything if we aren't looking out for every single community in the city. And I think your work really sets us up for that. So thank you.
Councilmember Gordon.
Yeah, I also wanted to thank all your efforts and appreciate it very much. Miss not serving on the Food Policy Council, but that's you know that's fine. It's great to have some more voices and some more people there too. I also really appreciate that you gave some input on the comp plan. I know there are some food policy issues in the comp plan now among the policies, so that's great work that it's there, and hopefully you'll keep looking at that and you'll take a look at that. I know there's lots more that we could do. I remember when we first started opening up the city to growing, we made some concessions and some compromises, and we still hear back from people who wonder why they can't have a permanent greenhouse somewhere, even if they have an urban farm, and somehow they can't, and it's not allowed. And we bump into all sorts of little problems here as regulators, but those are little hurdles that we can sometimes help get over. I know that we're making a change, or did it already pass, to the mobile grocery store. 1 week, okay, stay tuned. Okay, so that's coming up. And there may be some changes to the staple food ordinance coming as well. So stay tuned for that. And also, know, we'll be coming to you with those ideas to try to get feedback and support for them as they move forward.
Thank you.
I'll just jump in here and say that when I first got elected and then I saw the multitude, there's 50 external boards that we have to figure out who serves on what. And we had to duke it out a little bit. I was like, please, let me be on the food council. And he was like, all right, we'll give the youngins a chance. So thank you for that. And also, I just have to say, I love serving on the food council. There is such an amazing energy, and it also just is a really joyful experience for me as a Northsider to have Northsiders leading the work, to be able to have that perspective from the start, knowing that our community has been historically completely left out of fresh food, growing our own food, just fresh access to fresh, healthy food. It means so much to really see two amazing Northsiders leading this work. So thank you so much for all of your leadership. And we got to cook again together. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from my colleagues? All right, seeing no further questions, thank you so much to the three of you. With that, I would like to make a motion to receive and file the presentation on the 2017 Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council accomplishments and 2018 plans. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That motion passes. So I just want to let folks know that our next committee meeting is going to be on July 9th at 1:30 here in the chambers. And I would like to remind everyone, the riveted viewers at home especially, to please contact your council member and make sure that your voice is heard. Thank you so much. And with that, we are adjourned.